All right, welcome to the number one Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Dadio. I'm joined as always by John Sheeran, and we have Luke, the Truth Null, back on the show. Luke, you are officially the most appeared guest on our show.
Thank God.
Yeah. And Luke adds so much. He is, if you don't know, he has a very impressive resume in comedy, but he's also a very hardcore Bengals fan. And like we said, the one of the biggest celebrity names to be a Bengals fan. Luke, tell us what's going
And that's
on.
pretty sad. If I'm
Well-
one of the biggest celebrity names, being that I'm not at all a celebrity in any way, shape, or form, the fact that I'm one of the biggest ones means that's very Bengals.
Yeah, but you go to those weekly meetings with Clooney and Harrelson. You just chop it up with the boys. It's nice.
Yeah.
It's good company.
Luke,
love hanging with the boys.
If it makes you feel better, I too am one of the biggest celebrity names to be a Bengals
That's
fan.
true.
So it's not a bad club to be in. Yeah.
No, it's good.
Luke, so you are doing some comedy tours. You have some new material that everybody is going to want to hear. You talk about a lot of, I want to say, deep topics, kind of philosophy related topics, right? What kind of things are you going to share in your comedy?
Really highbrow stuff. Lots of devil worshiping. A lot of stuff about the devil. If you want to come hear comedy about my relationship, my physical relationship with the devil, then come on out to the comedy clubs, baby. Check all, go to good old fashioned LukeNull.com, and then you can hear about my butt, my wiener, and my relationship with the devil.
Okay, yeah. So, great. Here we go, guys. Today, I want to talk about T. Higgins working out with Jalen Ramsey. What does that mean? What does it mean? We all know that Jalen Ramsey first became relevant when he got thrown around by AJ Green. Now he's considered one of the best corners in the league, right? And T. Higgins, we have so many headlines about him these days. He's losing weight, he's getting faster, he's getting stronger. And now he wants to work out with the best with Jalen Ramsey. John, does this mean anything?
I think he's gaining weight, actually. He's gaining weight, but also getting faster, which is a little bit counterintuitive. But yeah, Jalen Ramsey, there's no one better to practice against in terms of just beating one-on-one coverage. He's incredibly physical. He's impossible to get off the line with. And I think that's an area where T needs improvement on, just getting off the line and getting a release. Jalen Ramsey is the best press cover corner. He's probably the best all-around cornerback in the game. And yeah, there's no one really better to learn from. If you're a second-year receiver, still growing into your body, still learning who you are as a football player. So yeah, if it's just T working with him, that's great. But if it's other receivers, he can kind of chop it up with them, learn from them. But I think it's an overall net positive if he wants to get better.
For sure. And T's a muscle man now. From all the reports, it sounds like T's a full-on muscle man, beefcake. And so just working out with Jalen Ramsey and getting practice, like hopefully doing really personal smack talk and ending up whooping his ass just on a practice field. It's probably good practice too. It's you want to do that, not during game time. Let's get all of the helmet ripping and punching someone's in the helmet during practice and stuff. So it's just good that he's, taking the time to do these off-season workouts.
I don't really know what it means personally, but I do like that Higgins is so aggressive in terms of improving himself. And I wonder, John, if that has to do with Jamar Chase. Is T. Higgins worried about being relegated to, second tier status in Joe Burrow's heart?
But that's what he was last year, right? Like,
yeah,
AJ Green was the number one receiver. T. Higgins was number two, and that benefited Higgins because he always got the number two cornerback. He didn't really face a lot of double teams or bracketed coverages. And now that Chase is here, he basically takes AJ Green's place. T. Higgins' role is basically staying the same, but he has that year with Burrow and that chemistry it's already established. He can kind of just grow on that. So I'm not sure if it's necessarily a fear in Higgins' mind. I think he knows that he's still going to be heavily involved. He's not going to see less targets. He's only going to see more because he's going to play more. But yeah, it's just if you have this level of talent, all throughout the receiver room. Everyone needs to stay on top of their game, on top of their progress, to make sure that they're not getting left behind and they're not falling out of favor. I guess that is the fear, but I don't think it's necessarily him saying, "Oh, I'm going to see less targets because Jamar Chase is here." He's only going to see more because he only started like I think 10 or so games last year. He didn't become a starter until later in the season. He's only going to get more shares.
Yep,
That's a good point.
Getting more looks.
Yeah, he's going to get a lot of looks. One guy though that you look at as being the most established receiver on the team, who most people seem to have decided he is number 3, is Tyler Boyd. I mean, John, this guy, look, I read a stat recently. He has 51 catches of 15 or more yards from the slot. And that is the most in the entire NFL over the last 3 years. That is crazy, John. This guy might be the best slot receiver in the NFL, and he's like an afterthought now.
I think he does have.
Don't sleep on TB.
He does have the argument of being the best slot receiver, but like you mentioned, like he's number 3. I'm not sure that that's accurate. Like we can look at Luke's jersey, right? John Ross, when he was coming into with the Bengals, there was like a clear hierarchy of AJ Green, Tyler Boyd, John Ross. It was never thought that Ross could elevate beyond like a number 3 or number 2 status. I think the 3 receivers that the Bengals have right now, Chase, Higgins, and Boyd, it's like 1A, 1B, 1C. Like at any point during the game or just any game in any week, you could turn to one of those guys as the lead option in your passing game and be completely fine with it because you have all 3 of those guys. Their presence accounts for what the defense has to do. And all 3 of those guys could have a 100-yard game just like that. I think they're all talented enough to do that and carry an offense based off what the defense is giving to you in that current week. So, like, yes, Tyler Boyd's technically, I guess, the number 3 because he's the slot guy and you may not see that many downfield targets, but I think it's really just they're all number 1s in their own kind of way.
There was that highlight from last year, one of the best. I forget what game it was from, where Joe Burrow was just like surprise under a ton of pressure and had to get the ball out before he wanted to, before Tyler Boyd was out of his break, and he just like chucked it at where Tyler Boyd is going to be, and Tyler like turned around and the ball was already in his hands. Like it was totally blind. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think of what game it was, but I just remember being like, "Oh, Tyler Boyd is awesome. He's so good."
That's actually what
blind. Yeah,
that's what I wanted to talk about. Is I said this before the season. I knew it was coming. A guy with the football smarts of Tyler Boyd working with the guy with the football smarts of Joe Burrow is just perfect. And so I see Tyler Boyd as that warm blanket that Joe Burrow can rely on when he really needs those yards. And I know he loves Jamar Chase. He's the big play guy. But I see Boyd, he's kind of like Burrow's John Sheeran, the guy you go to when you run out of things to do. When you're just in a tough position, you're like, "Hey, take this, go." And I think Boyd is that guy. And it's not just because he's the veteran. It's because of his, like I said, his ability to understand the game and to put himself in tough positions, and his toughness. Not like the other guys are not tough, but Boyd is exceptionally tough, John. Remember when his leg broke in half and he picked up the other half? It was the end of the game. I think it was like that year when they went to overtime against Miami. Remember, he dragged himself up to the line because the clock was running out. John, you remember that?
Yeah,
I think I remember this now.
He had like a hammy or something.
Yeah,
it wasn't as visceral as you're making it out to be, but I think I do remember this now.
Yeah, but he's
no. Dadio was right. He broke his leg off.
And he put it back together. He put it back together and got back to the line. That is what I mean. I hate to say it, John, but he's Pittsburgh, right? He's a Pittsburgh guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So to grow up in Pittsburgh and deal with that amount of jerkery and meanness, you have to be tough. You have to have thick skin.
I don't think he's missed a game like in his career. If he has, he's missed less than 5.
Yeah.
So
that's what I was saying. All right. So look, guys. So we've talked about the receivers. John says 1A, 1B, 1C. We know it's going to be some guys have more targets, but what he's saying is that everybody's going to be an option. It's like especially someone Joe Burrow, who reads the field so well. He's going to go with the guy who deserves the catch, right? He's not going to have favorites, John.
Every play has
the defense.
Exactly. Like there's there's where players are going to align for the most part, right? You have Jamar Chase on the line of scrimmage as your X. You have T. Higgins on the opposite side of the formation. You have Boyd in the slot. You can move those guys around a lot. You can put Chase in the slot. You can put Boyd outside for sometimes. There's going to be places where they primarily align, but based off of what the down distance is, what the situation of the game is, there are going to be times where every one of those receivers is going to be the primary target for a certain play. And I was on a podcast, I was on a fantasy podcast a couple of weeks ago, and they're talking about how do you project this offense in terms of who gets the most targets and who gets the most catches. It's very feasible that all three of these guys can end up with 60 catches in this season, which is not common for an NFL team to have three receivers end up with that many receptions. But that is basically how this offense is going to be run and how it's going to be structured. All these guys are going to get very even production. There'll be some games where some guys pops off, but over the course of a 17-game season, it'll be very even, I would say.
Yeah.
I think so too, and which means don't take our boys in fantasy. Probably it's probably not a great choice for early round to get our guy. I hope they put up big numbers. I do think they will, but exactly what you're saying is going to be like why you don't want any of those guys to be like your number one option, because who knows, maybe it's not
going to benefit Burrow. Like
it's going to be great.
No, I mean, look at Burrow's last year, and you look at Justin Jefferson, and you look at Jamar Chase, and you look at all the guys who had great fantasy years, right? Even Thaddeus Moss. I mean, I mean, with a guy like Burrow putting up video game stats, they could be very relevant in fantasy. But John, so we talked about those three are great. Okay, a guy that a lot of Bengals fans love is Auden Tate. But he doesn't have that explosiveness, the acceleration that, maybe some of the other guys do. Who's the number 4? And how big is his role with those three on the roster?
Well, the whole thing about Tate, exactly. Like Tate, when, the past couple of years, there's people propping him up as a starter, as a guy who can handle a lot of targets. And I'm not really sure about that because, like you say, he doesn't have the athleticism to really threaten some of these cornerbacks. Now is a number 4, right? It's like Darius Phillips at cornerback. Like that's exactly what he should be. He should come on the field every once in a while, give you an added dimension because he's big and strong and can catch the ball really high in the air. Like that's fine. He's a very niche player. He can't handle the amount of targets that the others are going to get. But as a number 4 receiver, I think Luke can agree. Auden Tate is as good as you're going to get.
Yeah, for a number 4 receiver to have a guy with like a huge catch radius, he basically has the body type of a tight end who hasn't put on any weight. He's like one of the slowest wide receivers in the NFL, but dude has vacuum hands, and from a number 4 wide receiver who's only going to see a couple targets, mostly in the red zone and mostly, what I mean, like or as an outlet on third down, Absolutely. He's great. He's the number 4, I think. Yeah. I don't know. Do you go like Mike Thomas? Who are the other options? Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know who.
Well, I mean,
but you don't. Yeah.
We could talk tight ends because I mean, I don't know, John. What is going on at tight end?
I think it's just Uzomah and Sample, man. Like, and then Moss maybe makes the team.
Yeah.
Something
really
it also
just seems like Zach Taylor's offense. He's not. The tight end he's not using it as like a much of a receiving option. It seems like that's why they like Drew Sample so much, is they're like, we need help blocking. But you know what I mean?
Uzomah was looking good. I mean, I know it's an Achilles tear, right, John? I mean, so that is tough, but
he'll be back.
And he's a very
he's an interview champ too.
Yeah,
he seems like the nicest, best dude. I love listening to his interviews.
Very charismatic.
Yeah, with Sample, obviously hasn't panned out the way we thought he would, but he seems to be growing.
He's panned out exactly the way I thought he would.
It is hard for tight ends to really break in early. Like if he's going to do it, it's going to be this year. But again, like if he's still behind Uzomah in the depth chart and not getting as many targets, it's going to be hard for him to reach the status that you want of a 2nd round pick. So he's kind of in a tough spot.
Yeah.
All right. So guys, I want to, go ahead, Luke.
I don't crap on him at all. I feel like he gets, it's not his fault that we reached to get him. He's still, the story hasn't been written. He still can absolutely contribute and be a good piece for them, but 2nd round pick. Yeah. He's always going to carry that. Like, we probably could have got you 2 rounds later,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But you really don't know. I mean, I've seen like a Peyton Manning turn almost every tight end he's played with into a superstar. Remember the guy Julius on the Broncos?
Julius Thomas, yeah, Dallas
Yeah.
Clark before him.
I'm not saying he wasn't good. But didn't he sign with the Jaguars for like $10 million a year or something later and didn't do much? I'm just saying it's like
Did nothing. Yeah. I remember when Reggie Nelson ripped the ball out of his hands.
yeah. I like
week 16, 2014 to send us to the playoffs, baby.
Yeah.
I was at that game.
Yeah, and I like Burrow, his intangibles, much more than Manning. But he reminds me of Manning in a way, which is that he just kind of is just like, because of his ability to process, he just spreads it all over the field. So he can make average guys put up bigger stats. But I want to switch gears real quick and talk about a very important topic, which is that Quinton Spain does not feel rated appropriately. He thinks he's underrated. And let me explain what happened. So, July 6th at 3:04 p.m., a tweet comes out saying who is the most underrated player in the NFL with a emoji of a monocle and popcorn. That implies that a monocle obviously is research and the popcorn is the nutrition you will need to do long research. So this is something that they expected you to ponder and evaluate. 8 minutes later, at 3:08 p.m., Quinton Spain comes out and he says, it's me, basically. So the fact that
his argument is that he is the most underrated, and that what that means is no one has him rated literally at all whatsoever. And because of that, he feels like he's like a D or a D- type guy. And it's like the fact that has an incomplete grade that is messed up. You know what I mean? He should be rated as like a fringe, dude. I mean, I understand you gotta be confident in your stuff and be like, but it's like, come on, bud. No.
But John, I mean, look, the guy had, a bunch of good years early on. I think 2017 is one of the better guards. So maybe
good. He was good. He was good. Good mid-season pickup,
Yeah. So I mean, maybe this means that he has the drive to really, take hold of that left guard position.
I think Dadio is very underrated as an emoji detective, because that was great work right there.
I think so too.
Quinton Spain was actually really underrated when he first came into the league in Tennessee. I think he was like a 3-year, 4-year starter with them. He signed a contract with Buffalo because as like a 25, 26-year-old starter, he just came out of nowhere as an undrafted guy, and he was really good with what Tennessee was doing on offense. And then for whatever reason, just all fell apart in Buffalo. I have no idea why
he didn't play for them. It seemed like they didn't start him. Like they brought him in
he
and
got
didn't
benched
play him.
after like week 3 of last season. He looked god awful. I don't know really what happened with him, but he was still a name. He still had pass production, and Cincinnati just needed any and all bodies. And then he played not so well last year, but I think you can chalk all that up to bad coaching with their previous offensive line coach. Now he's in year 6 or 7 of his career. He's back to his natural position. I think this is a chance for him to prove his worth. He's on a 1-year prove a deal for like making like $1 million this year. There's a chance for him to get back to that status where he was a few years ago, but he's going to need to play like that again because he hasn't played like that in a couple years.
Somebody's got to step up. I mean, it's someone's job to win. God almighty, I hope it's someone competent. I hope one of the guys steps up at left guard and actually plays well, because we don't want to see old Joey die. We don't want to see him die for our sins again.
No, we don't. But what we do want to see is you to get out there and fly out there to San Francisco and support Luke. He needs it. He needs your love.
Yes, you guys. Purchase a ticket tonight to fly to San Francisco to attend my live comedy show. Baby.
It's going to be
it will be worth it.
Great this time of year.
Watch me work stuff out.
It's going to be almost as good as this show, which, by the way, you can listen to in podcast form on, what is it, iPods and a streamer,
iTunes,
and all of those things, and then you can leave a 5.
Only iPods, actually.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. So Luke is the expert. He's the Hollywood brains. Yeah. And leave a 5-star review. And that is it. So we'll see you next time for John Sheeran and Luke Null. So long, SVT. Bye.